Welcome to Running for Real, a global community with a shared love and curiosity for running. Together we reconnect with the reasons why we love to run and discover ways it helps us become better people. Whether it's the quiet moments of a morning run while the rest of the world still sleeps, or befriending the strangers next to you at the start line of a race, we are here to connect with others who see running as the common thread that weaves our lives together. Come join me, Tina Muir, as I talk with people from all walks of life, united by a love of running. Hello, my friends, and welcome to episode 421 of the Running for Real podcast. Thank you for joining me today. I'm excited that you are here and very excited to welcome you or introduce you to my guest for today. My guest today is Quinton Jacobs, aka Q. Someone I got to know about a year ago and has just really impacted my life in such a positive way with the light and love he gives out to this world. And you're going to hear today about how giving out that light and love has led to these amazing opportunities. And it's a reminder for us all to find the beauty in giving, and things will kind of work themselves out if you do that. So Q is the co-founder of Escape2. He has done a lot with Lululemon and just an incredible community builder within the city of Toronto. So I'm going to let Q explain his story for himself, why community is at the heart of everything he does. And let's check in with one of our sponsors. They'll be right to this episode with Q. I try to eat all the fruits and vegetables I can in my diet, but I'm also not perfect at it. I do enjoy my foods, and sometimes that means choosing things that aren't packed full of vegetables and fruits, because that's what life is about, right? Fueling our bodies with whole foods is important, but every one of us is going to have nutrient gaps, including me. And that is why I start my day with AG1. It ensures that I'm filling any nutritional gaps. It means I can enjoy going out to eat and not feel pressure to eat a certain thing, because I know I'm supporting my whole body health by starting my day off with a scoop of AG1. AG1 is a foundational nutritional supplement that delivers daily nutrients and gut health support and is backed by multiple research studies, so you can trust what you're putting into your body. I trust AG1 because, unlike so many products, the entire formula is backed by research studies, not just the ingredients. AG1 is packed with a variety of nutrient-dense ingredients and is the perfect complement to every healthy diet. I drink it every day because I know it gives me peace of mind. I can tell when my body isn't functioning the way that it should, particularly when it comes to digestion and my gut. Recently, they found in a research study, AG1 doubled the amount of healthy bacteria in the gut, including 2 species known for supporting gut and whole body health. If there's one product I trust to support my whole body, it's AG1, and that's why I've partnered with them for so long. It's easy and satisfying to start your journey. Try AG1 and get a free 1-year supply of vitamin D3, K2, and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase at drinkag1.com/Tina. That's drinkag1.com/Tina. Check it out. Q, welcome to the Running for Real podcast. I am so excited to have you on here and to introduce my audience to you. I've loved getting to know you the past year, we can now say. Yeah, and sure. Thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, this is going to be fun. It's actually kind of amazing to me that I met you very much in should we say a work situation, but it was very much like one of many that I met that night. You were one of many that I met that night, and I was probably one of many that you met that night. And it wasn't really like immediately we were, close friends, but over the past year, I've really enjoyed getting to know you. And I have to share with the listeners, one of the biggest ways I knew that we were going to be good friends. And that was not long after I had my Achilles surgery. You challenged me to go to the store to get the, what are they called? Mobility chairs?
The buggies, the go-karts.
Yeah. I mean,
the free go-karts.
Yeah. They are like a go-kart, although you definitely got better ones than I did. In Missouri or St. Louis, they clearly have some kind of speed limit lock on them. But You challenged me to go do that, to go around the store, to pick up random items. And I did it. And that was one of my, it's not like coming back from a surgery. I have all these cherished memories that are like, I can't wait for that to happen again. But that was one of my favorite moments, and one of the highlights of the last few months was doing that. And I did it again and again. But that first time felt so empowering to just make a bit of light of the situation. And I was so grateful to you for sending me videos of you doing that and reminding me that, you know, even when things are tough, you can still have fun. You can still find ways to enjoy your life. So I want to thank you publicly for that, because it really meant a lot. And it was just, in addition to the conversations we've had, it really solidified like why I appreciate you so much. So thank you.
I mean, I was there, right? I tore my Achilles, and I know how dark that can be, especially as an athlete. But there's always a silver lining. You just got to kind of get uncomfortable. Mm-hmm. And I had a blast. I was going and riding those carts long after I was healed. So they had to tell me to stop. Uh-huh. So, I'm glad and now you're back on your feet. I
am. Yes. Yeah. No, this next few weeks, including when this comes out, I will be with you or in your area, seeing you on and off in Toronto, which is something that feels good to be, but getting back to places where I like to be and around people who I want to be around after, you know, this rehab period. So it is exciting for me knowing that I am at that point. But today is about you. I want to hear your journey. Now, when we talked a few minutes before we started recording, I asked you kind of your relationship with running as a child / teenager, and you said it was non-existent. So can you share with us, this is quite a common thing actually, that people who end up being community builders are people who either despise running or just had a very negative relationship with running, so it's something they would never do. Will you share with us what that looked like for you?
Yeah, I mean, I hated it. I hated it. I remember being signed up for cross country, and I was wearing cargo pants and these goofy little Adidas. And I remember coming in, like, you know, when you cross a finish line and someone says you're like 257 or something like that, then that doesn't feel good. Mm-hmm. I hated running. I hated how I felt and all of that. And so I didn't circle back until much later in life. And then I fell in love with it. So.
You know, that's so interesting you say that, actually. I've never thought about the fact that, I mean, again, I like you, I'm not from the US. I'm from the UK. I don't know how it is in the US, but that is a very interesting concept that I remember running my first national championships in England when I thought I was good at running. And like, granted, you know, if you compare all the kids in England, I was, but I finished 222nd. And I knew that I finished 222nd because that was all there was with that race, was where did you finish? There was nothing else that you could take out of that race other than where did you finish? That was the only question people wanted to know. That was the only thing, there was only value that was taken from that. And I've never thought about that piece of, that is such an interesting thing. Like what other situation does a child have where they finish in the 200s of something?
Even adults, I think it's just normal. We just we like numbers, and we measure ourselves with numbers. And I know for sure that social media kind of has just sort of had people lean into that, right? Mm-hmm. KPIs, how many likes, how many followers, like numbers just kind of rule how a lot of people find validation. And I like to think right outside of that. The magic to me is in all these areas where numbers just don't exist. So,
where did that come from in you? Is that something you've always been that way? When did that appear?
I don't know. I mean, as it applies to running, I can say that I, like most people, fell into running in that kind of arena, right? In the idea of like, you start running, it's what are your paces? You know, how fast are you going? How far are you going? What's your PB? Right? You learn about gels and nipple band-aids and all those things first. And, for me, it took going through a divorce to develop a different relationship with running. So like outside of a physical relationship with running, which most people kind of fall into, I discovered, the mental health sort of aspect of running, or season. I like to call it season of running. And so now I'm running with no Garmin. I'm just going out and running and trying to go through my thoughts. And it didn't automatically mean I ran slow. Some of my mental health runs, I ran fast. I just went how my body felt. Mm-hmm. And sometimes I went at a snail's pace, and sometimes I blazed, through my emotions. But that was the first time that I sort of acknowledged and recognized how much more dynamic the sport of running is, right? It was just so much bigger. And that led me to sort of uncover all these other seasons of running, which is where I've been having the most fun. And I've been running for over 20 years now. And I've done the most fantastic and incredible things within the sport of running in the last, say, 5 years, when I was completely outside of the physical season of running.
When you say, we're going to get into some of this at a deeper level, but when you say some of the most incredible things, what comes to mind for you there?
So all these other seasons, like, now you've got the season of just running for community, like running. If there's a physical aspect of running or season of running, and there's a mental health season of running, enter this adventure side of running, right? You're running from LA to Vegas, or you're running in Alaska or through Chile, on the speed project, or all these relays, hood to coast, right? Like, you're not thinking about necessarily your pace. If there's these gorgeous landscapes around you, you're with the coolest people you can imagine. Like, there's this season of just adventure. Where has running taken me? And like, that to me is such a special place and season. Mm-hmm. And the fourth season that I like to think about is just running through other people's experiences, through their legs, through their journey, running with the youth programs, for instance, that I mentor with, or just going to a crew run and meeting someone and being like, what, are you training for anything? And then, like...
Do you feel like that's still the question that comes up the most? What are you training for?
Sometimes, this is the best thing ever. I was at a crew run, and there's a running club here in Toronto called Hill Run Club, and it's primarily for women of color. And Allison and what she's doing with this group is really changing the narrative for people who haven't traditionally seen themselves as runners. Anyways, I'm at this run crew, and one of the girls from Hill Run Club's there, and she's talking to this other girl, and she says, running's changed my life. She says, I've started running. I've been running for a year, and running has changed my life completely. And the girl beside her says, that sounds amazing. I'd love to run with what pace today? What do you guys run? And she says, what do you mean? And I'm just behind, just listening. She says, what do you mean? And she says, like, how fast are you going? I don't know if I could keep up. And this girl legitimately didn't know what a pace was. And she'd been running for a year. And it got me thinking, like, can you imagine? Most people can't start a run club or join a running community without knowing all those things, having those things forced down them. She found a community where she ran for a year, and running changed her life. And not once did anyone explain to her what a pace was.
Yeah, that's wow.
And that to me was just like, my heart was full. And I was just like so proud to know that there are spaces like this that exist now, where they are starting from other seasons.
Yeah.
Right? You don't even need to evolve there. You're starting in a place where, paces, we'll get there. And I like to think of it as seasons, T, because like, who's to say you don't wake up one morning and say, how fast am I? Can I go back to my peak? Mm-hmm. But if you know what season you're in, you can show up authentically for that season.
Yeah.
And I don't need to be chasing a PB right now because I'm injured, or because life is difficult, or because I'm just not in that space. I'm going to be so frustrated trying to hit paces and stuff like this, So it's just like finding the season and then showing up authentically. That's where I'm at.
I love that. And that is hitting me in an interesting way right now. As we're recording this, I'm going into the next 4 weeks where, in the next 4 Saturdays I have 5K with each of the races I'm working with, and one Saturday off where I'm not racing or not entered in a 5K, I should say. As you know, I'm coming back from surgery. As you also know, my recovery has not been smooth. I fully thought I would be a 5K this weekend, going into Chicago would be a easy goal to have reached, to run an entire 5K. I am not at that point. And so I'm going into these 3 situations where they are technically quote unquote races. The relation to my personal best is not in the picture for me, that I really couldn't care less, but it is entering into a race. And I did speak to you about the Toronto race as well, personally, about doing it. I feel quite nervous going into these situations because I'm not sure what showing up authentically looks like for me at this point, with this point in my recovery, with the fact that it is technically a race, and I'm wearing my trash skirt and climate stats on my body to kind of buffer myself, I think, to kind of give an insurance policy to make sure I don't try and push myself too far. But it's interesting you saying that right now, because I'm entering into a season and I don't know what that season looks like. I don't know what showing up authentically is.
And now running's new again for you.
Yeah.
It's new again. Like, the way you can enjoy this beautiful sport longer is by truly experiencing all the different seasons. Like, you'll just get burned out if you're stuck in one. But also, forget about burned out. You're missing out on all of these incredible opportunities. We have social crews out here in Toronto, like most places, and you always see someone come up and they got their Garmin on, they're watching the pace, and they got their headphones on, and I'm looking and I'm thinking, this guy might be in the wrong season, because this is a social run. No one here is like, it's not a workout. So you came here to socialize and to be with people that came to meet each other, but you're kind of locked in. And so you don't show up in the winter with your shorts on. So you got to dress appropriately for the season that you're in. So I love running with some of the youth programs that I run with.
Yeah.
And when I'm genuinely not thinking about my pace, not thinking about my problems. I'm so dialed into what these little feet are doing beside me. And it just takes my mind completely off of all these other things that could sweep me away or did before. And I think you going and running these 5Ks is such a beautiful opportunity for you to rediscover running with new eyes and new feet.
It really is. And that's the other piece you said about the young kids. Most of the races I've done over the last 4 years have been as a guide for a friend who's blind or has Down syndrome or has a traumatic brain injury. And so this is it feels quite exposed to me because I don't have anyone else to focus on. But as you said, this is my opportunity to write my next few pages of what is running going to be to me. So, yeah.
I'm excited. I'm still trying to figure out if I can run the 5K. We've got so many kids in the kickback program that are running the 5K. So I've got to see if my duties are going to be to help logistically get them to the start line, cheer. But if at all possible, and I'll know in the next few days, I'd love to. I'm either going to be running beside you or cheering for you.
Yeah.
Really.
No, I appreciate that. Thank you. Okay, so with what we've been talking about, I want to go back to where you said you realized that running was so much more about PRs and paces. When you recognized that, were there other people around you saying the same thing, or were you in a kind of room full of people who it was all about paces? And how did you handle that when you kept trying to sway, maybe you kept trying to nudge the conversation towards there's so much more than just numbers and paces. And it seemed you were kind of speaking to someone or speaking to people who had no capacity to understand what you were saying or interest in saying.
That's a good question. I mean, I still am. I'm one of the older dudes within my circle of friends. So a lot of it comes from experience and where I am in my running journey. And I have to have grace and for the people that are still starting out. it's easy for me to focus on these other seasons from where I'm at now in my life, because I've got kids that are older, and I ran fast paces. I qualified for Boston. I've been there on the qualifying standard. So I still allow and acknowledge that people are all at different places, but I'm pretty good at just doing my own thing and leading from example. I love just doing my thing and letting people see it. Like, I feel like that's the best way to share things, is to just do it. And so if someone asks me to be on a podcast or to talk to me, I can share my 2 cents. But most of the time, I'm not really speaking about it. I'm just being about it.
And did you notice that other people, that kind of piqued the curiosity in other people who maybe were internally longing for a different way of doing things, but no one had ever spoken word to it or done something about it before?
Yeah, totally. And the running world is like rich right now with all these really cool experiences, right? Like what Nils is doing with Speed Project was getting people, it's still called the Speed Project and people are still racing. But you figure out really quickly after a day that you can't run as fast as you thought in the middle of the desert. And so you start to just kind of dial back a bit, and you take in some of these other things that are happening. And it doesn't happen overnight, but I love seeing people signing up for all these cool adventure, weird type things. And there's ones that are all over the world, but there's also like hyper local cool activations all over the place that are just taking people out of that mindset a little bit.
Yeah,
it's still great.
I absolutely agree. And I do encourage people, if you haven't taken that opportunity, even if you are someone who is in a season where you are, trying to run to your potential, you're going to have a down period. You're going to have time after races where you can find these adventures and find ways to keep it interesting, keep it fun. I want to shout out Ricky from St. Louis, he's done a lot of different events of bringing people together, but with his, he's been able to do this. He recently did this like meditative and run piece, and the longest run was 7 miles. You could also do a 3 mile and I think a 1.5 mile were the options. So very, very much walkers encouraged. He's really bringing people in. But the meditation piece, having someone who is a meditation teacher come in for the STL Run Crew event, was just something I loved, seeing those two pieces come together in a different part of town here in St. Louis. So if we can find it here in St. Louis, I think many listeners, look up what is going on in your area. And would you have any advice for someone who maybe is thinking they want to find something like that, but doesn't know where to start or look?
Oh, geez, I don't know. I think just sort of stepping back and being open, right? Because sometimes you see what you want to see. And so if you're in a season of paces, you find the clubs that are running fast. Yeah. You find the people that are speaking that language, and that becomes sort of your circle. But if you find it's not serving you, I would say just sort of step back and start watching and looking where other people are running with a different vibe and a different intention, and allow yourself to kind of move in that space.
You've heard me talking about Tracksmith for years, 5 years to be exact, because those same items that I was given 5 years ago are still lasting the same, even though they've done hundreds of runs, thousands of miles. And recently they've been handling sweaty bike workouts, especially when I'm on the stationary trainer, as well as even swims. I've done a few swims in my items. The quality, the durability is lasting beautifully. And that is because Tracksmith takes so much pride in what they make. As I've mentioned before, the number one thing you can do environmentally when it comes to your running clothes is to buy high quality items that last. I am a big fan of many of the items that are bestsellers, including the Session Speed shorts. Those are my favorite shorts of all time. I love all the tanks. I really just love every one of them. I wear them almost every day. I'm wearing one of those tanks, as well as the Session short tights. You can go check those out. And I encourage you to use code TINANEW for $15 off your order of $75 or more. That's use code TINANEW, TINANEW at tracksmith.com to get yourself that special offer. Get yourself some quality items, make them last. You will be amazed with the quality, the durability, and they're going to look good too. Go check it out at tracksmith.com. Yeah. Yep. That's good advice. Okay. So then with you, I've really noticed over the past year where we've been talking that for you, you've mentioned here already, like community is the heart of this for you, connecting with other people. It could be very easy as someone who understood this early on, who began building these moments to build community early on, to let your ego run away with this of look how big my group is, look at all these things that I've managed to pull together. But for you, absolutely seem that for you, none of that matters. As you mentioned there with you don't tend to talk to people to get them to see things differently. You do it essentially by example. Have you always been that way in terms of not wanting to do it to make yourself look good or to be the one that built something? Has that always been a trait that you've had, that you like to make it about other people always?
That's thank you. I don't know that many people see that, and I don't necessarily think I go about it with a direct intention. But
yeah.
Wow, like some of the people that I look up to the most, the characteristic that stands out when I think of some of these people is humility. Like some of the people that are just doing the most incredible things in my life that I look up to lead with their actions before anything else, and often go unrecognized for doing the most.
See, I would describe you as that. That's literally how I would describe you. Anyway, keep going.
No, and maybe that's what it is, right? These are the people that I look up to. And it made me sort of discover this phase where I've even said it. I'm like, the biggest flex is not flexing at all. And I see, the fact that you need sometimes, and we're in a world where people are trying to build a brand and trying to, create something out of, their personality. To me, there's a lot of validation that's sought in recognition for things. And for me, my validation comes from like one interaction from one of the youth that I'm working with. Like that's my focus. So it's never been, and most of the people that know me know like numbers will come. Like I don't measure things by numbers and KPIs. Like to me, what matters, I would rather impact 3 people and know that I've got a solid bona fide relationship and connection, or I've impacted or changed 3 people's lives, than have a picture with me with 150 people that probably are chasing different run cruising communities all over the city. Like, it just matters so much to me. Like as people get pulled away into sort of social media and things that happen within the corners of these screens, for me, it's increased the value of real life so much more. Like I want to be expert at real life and real people and real relationships. Like that's where I want to be. And so, yeah, like I really genuinely don't care so much about the numbers. But what I found is the more I pour out of my cup, the fuller it is. Yeah. So the numbers just come. Like I'm taken care of, I'm blessed no matter what. And it's not because I'm trying to hold on to all these numbers or stockpile. It's because I'm literally pouring out. So
what have been some of your favorite things to come to mind in that sense of opportunities that have come your way, not through you seeking them, but just,
New York
people wanting
marathon, London marathon. I didn't apply to them. Right. And someone said, well, I don't want to go, unless I can qualify, because I'm not qualified for the race. And I thought to myself, qualifying is dope, but qualifying represents the time and effort that you put into yourself. Nothing wrong with it. But I went off of the strength of the time and effort that I put into other people. And so every run that I ran with the kids, I could have been running by myself. I could have been putting into my tempo runs and stuff like that. But that's not what my focus was. And then all of a sudden I get a message that says, "Yo, Q, you want to run London?" And I'm like, right? Like experiences, I've been really blessed. And I think it's been truly, when I look back, it's because of what you said. It's not because I've been trying to like get it. It's funny when you ask for things, sometimes they slip away.
It's also interesting with a race like London, where yes, you could try and qualify, you could try and run fast enough to get in. But ultimately, with the amount of people that are now applying and continuing, that number continuing to build, it is getting harder and harder and harder to reach that time and that level. And so you could drive yourself, as people do with Boston, you could drive yourself crazy chasing these things.
It's 6 minutes now. It's like over 6 minutes. Yeah. You got to beat your time by over 6 minutes. And as running gets more and more popular, more and more people are finding out about these elite races. And with it's genius marketing with Abbott, like people are literally chasing the majors.
Yeah.
Right? Which is a massive privilege just to begin with, right? Like the fact that you can get into one of these hyper exclusive runs, pay the amount of money that it's going to cost to get to that country or to that city. And then those cities are already way more expensive on those race weekends.
Sure.
Yeah. It's something else. But I'm real excited to be in Chicago.
Do you struggle with that piece of it? Like you said about the privilege there, the almost social approval that comes from doing the world majors. Does that feel in some ways like it goes against what you're about?
No, like I said, I've got grace. Everyone's in a different phase, in a different place. It's easy for me to say, to not put emphasis on Boston because I ran it already, right? It's easy for me to say that. But so I appreciate that people are excited about running and what they can do and where it can take them. I think that's really cool. For me personally, though, I ran more majors when I wasn't signing up for them just because of the stuff I've been doing in the communities. And I think I've got one major left and I'm not in a rush.
You don't want to be in a rush either because if they keep adding more, then
yeah, right?
It's a never winning game.
Yeah, and there's so many beautiful runs all over the world. And you can even make your own run and do some really cool stuff on your own. So, the world is big. Running is not going anywhere. So it sounds so cliche, but it's a marathon. You don't need to rush at it.
Yep. That ties in nicely to something that you have been doing. You said make your own run. You have essentially done that. So can you share with us what Escape to started as? Where did that come from?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, many moons ago, Nils had created the Speed Project, and there was this sort of birth of this sort of pop-up relay. And it's a race that's been going on for so many years now. And other relays popped up like that. Escape was just a crazy idea between myself and a running friend and my buddy Andrew. Can we get a bunch of friends and run from Toronto to New York City? That was kind of runners do stupid things. And that was one of the things that we decided we were going to try to do. And the key was we would run to New York City, but we'd get there just before the New York City Marathon. And I've been trying to get into New York for years. And it turned out New Balance was a sponsor of it. And they found out about what we were doing and gave us registrations to run the New York City Marathon when we got there. So we were going to run nonstop from Toronto to New York City, and a few days later, run the New York City Marathon as a victory lap. 2019, and we did it. And the key for us was we have homies in New York, right? We were friends with the Bridge Runners and a lot of those guys, so we hollered at them, and we made it sort of a crew kind of endeavor Well, what was cool about that is when we left Toronto, all of our homies in Toronto were there with us to run that send-off leg. But also when we arrived in New York, you've got this community of people waiting because half of the team was from New York as well. And so there was this real opportunity to lean into sort of the community aspect of it. And as a result, we steered away from the idea of a race. We were like, no, Escape's not a race. It's a connection adventure, and through running, using running as a tool. And it was a not-for-profit type thing. Problem was, I tore my Achilles a month before Escape to New York. And so I, planned this thing for a year and couldn't run it. So we did it, or the team did it. I went along just to kind of support, but there was obviously unfinished business, and it kind of got a bit of underground popularity. So everyone kept saying, when's the next Escape to New York? And we were like, we don't have to do New York. Escape could be whatever we want it to be. Right? We did New York already, and I love Chicago. So, a few years later, we did Escape to Chicago. And similar format, we reached out to crews in Chicago, and it was about making sure that we were celebrating sort of the community that we were running to. And, 7 on Sundays, Aaron and Ian and Karen, all that crew, we folded them into the mix, and we were able to run from Toronto to Chicago and run the Chicago Marathon once we got there. Sort of realized what we didn't do in New York. And that sort of birthed this idea of Escape. What's it going to be? Where's it going to go? Didn't matter. All that matters is it's not a race. It's going to celebrate the people and the communities that we run through and to. It'll usually snowball towards a race or an event. And it will always have a giving back portion. You know what I mean? It will always be about giving back. So then we ran to Boston 2023. And this year we partnered with Lululemon and did an Escape around the Team Canada Paris Olympics. And so we worked on a campaign where we did an Escape to Paris and got to be there for the Olympics. So Escape has been a labor of love, a passion project for myself and some like-minded crazy runners. And it doesn't seem to want to stop anytime soon.
With Paris, as I'm sure this is something that people are wondering, how did you go about the Paris piece in particular, just being that there was a giant ocean in the middle?
Yes. And that was the thing. It was the first time we took Escape off the continent. And what we did for this campaign was there were several local activations in Toronto that Lululemon was running leading up to the send-off of our Canadian athletes. So at each of those activations, we brought a flag, and all of the people that would show up at this activation would sign the flag and put their sentiments and their love for our athletes on this flag. And so the flag just sort of made its way around Toronto at all these activations. And right before the Olympics kicked off, we had a big send-off, a big sort of block party to wish our athletes well. And we did sort of like an escape through the city of Toronto with the flag, sort of symbolic of, the send-off. And when we got to the block party, we announced that, while other countries might be waving their athletes off at the airport, we love up on our athletes so much that we're going to hand deliver this flag with love and with intention all the way through the hills of France and all the way to Paris. And so we fashioned a route in France, North France, and we ran the 360 kilometers through Vimy, through some historical sites that had Canadian, impact and significance, and ran all the way to Paris to hand deliver the flag. So that was sort of the notion and spirit behind what we did. But it was also the first time that we had taken Escape off the continent. So people could see this thing as breaking off of North America and somewhere else.
So naturally, the next question in people's minds is, okay, where next?
Ooh. So my mom was born in Cape Town, and one of my bucket list runs is Two Oceans in Cape Town. It takes place in April, and so we put out a little teaser just recently, but the next Escape officially is Escape to Cape Town, happening in April next spring.
So exciting.
Yeah, so we're going to be running nonstop, our longest escape, 950 kilometers from the east side of South Africa. It's called Kobecha, and we're finishing in Cape Town. And on the way, we're stopping in a township just outside of Cape Town, and we've organized a 5K with the kids from Mitchell's Plain, where we're going to be raising money and awareness for Run for Schools. And so this is there'll be over 100 kids, and we're organizing this run just to sort of fold them into this madness for a really incredible weekend next year.
Did you hear the exciting news that Precision Fuel and Hydration is now the nutrition sponsor of California International Marathon, CIM? That's where I ran my PR. I love that race, and I know so many of you do too, and now they are working together. It is a dream for me. I am so excited to see it and hear about it. Now, with Precision, I've been talking about them for a long time with you. I've told you how their gels, you don't get the flavor fatigue because they have this very neutral flavor, the original that is. And then the mint and lemon is very like palate cleansing. Mint is also really good for you to have during a struggle part of a race. And it tastes really good, especially the two together is a very refreshing mix when you have those chews. So I've told you about my love for the chews and the gels and how easy they go down. It is not a kind of uncomfortable taking it down. I really do enjoy them. And also the hydration. I love their pH 1000 that I use every day in my drinks to make sure I am topped up with electrolytes. And as I am getting back into training, I'm excited that I'm using more of these again, and I can get back into training so that I can have my next race be fueled by Precision and make sure that I can knock it out of the park, because they really get it. And if you don't know how much of each thing you should be taking, how many carbs, how many gels, how much electrolytes, they have a free fuel and hydration planner that can figure it all out for you. Absolutely free. You can also have a free 20-minute consultation if you like. There's lots of links in the show notes, but I would encourage you to go to precisionfuelandhydration.com/Tina. That's going to give you a 15% discount code. You can also use code Tina sent me. Go check it out, precisionfuelandhydration.com/Tina, or use code Tina sent me to get 15% off, and go check out that fuel and hydration planner. Oh, this is hard hearing this. As you know, I've been wrestling with this logistically with my just family situation, and whether I can handle that, or my husband, more to the point, can handle that time away. And it is building so beautifully. And you mentioned there about the kid component, about the fundraising. Tell us about that piece of Escape, because that's, one of the key components. We haven't really gone into that. Why is that important? And why is it more than just throwing money at someone?
I mean, and that's the thing, right? It's not a race. And like we talked about, like people right now, there is a sort of a notion of finding ways to validate sort of your performance or yourself through some of these events. And for me, especially this one, because I have family in Cape Town, and it was important that, if we were going to do a race there, it wouldn't be about what we take away from the experience. It would be what we leave behind. Right? So what happens when the global running community comes together for something other than PBs and selfies? What if we make it about something else? And so again, and maybe that's just part of the DNA that I'll put on these things is we partnered with Run for Schools, a beautiful organization, and the work that they do in this township is incredible. And so let's see. We've got some superstars in the global running community as a part of this project. I think people, once it starts to open up and people see what's going on, I think there's a real capacity to do something special. We've talked about building a track in Mitchell's Plain, which is what I'd love to do. I'd love to see if we could build a track. There's a lot of politics and red tape, so the timeline may not line up, but it's something that I'd love to work towards. We're working on a mural project, so we're going to be creating some murals along the 5K route and incorporating some of the kids in those murals, and then we'll unveil them when we do the run. So it's got a lot of special little surprises built in and baked in.
Mm. And for someone listening to this who's thinking, I love this. Can I be a part of this? What would you say?
I would say, well, holler at me. It's very limited. Again, it's not a race. It's not like Speed Project where people can just for liability and for safety and things like that, but also just to sort of manage the intention and the energy. I would say check the dates. Check out Two Oceans. If it's not the most beautiful race you've ever seen, I don't know what to tell you. And if it is something like, registrations actually opened last week, so I would definitely put your hat in to register. Yeah. And if running a little bit more, being a part of this campaign or this version of Escape is something that interests you, for sure, reach out.
Okay, great, thank you. Two Oceans Marathon, you mentioned there that you have family from South Africa. Did you say in Cape Town or near Cape Town?
In Cape Town.
In Cape Town.
Johannesburg as well, but a lot of my family's in Cape Town.
And you said it's beautiful. What is it going to mean to you when Escape, ends up at this Two Oceans Marathon? You get to do this experience. What is that going to mean to you to reach that moment?
It's special. It's magical when these different worlds collide, and you're able to somehow find a way to merge all the things that you love and the people that you love into one, moment that we'll be able to look back and live back. And to me, bringing friends and family from all over the world to South Africa was also important to me. That you don't get to just experience Cape Town through Table Mountain and Chapman's Peak and some of the beautiful sort of things. To me, the beauty in the country comes in the layers. It's in the people, which is why going into Mitchell's Plain is important. Seeing these other areas and the history of the country are important. So you don't, because you see it with the majors, right? People go to Tokyo and they leave and all they have is the same photo with those sort of orange things in the back and a medal, and they don't really get a chance to savor the beauty of the country that they're running through. And so this won't be that.
When you were talking earlier, was thinking about, as I said, you told me about this a while ago, and I've been thinking about it. It was an interesting kind of thought exercise for me, processing my way through what that could look like, because even in a relay situation, which granted, I've actually not done any of the relay-esque events, but the idea of it would have to be for me in any situation like this, a conscious switch off of that competitive brain of mine to not be, tagged to go and not be right, gotta focus, gotta get to the other piece, as quick as I can, head down. And that's so, in such a beautiful way, that's so different to any other experience that runners have with races, or at least those with competitive backgrounds like mine. Because even when I've done things for other people, it's still about getting them from point A to point B, to the max of their energy. Whereas this is eyes up, looking around, taking it in. Maybe a kid comes and runs next to you for a minute and you run with them, and that's part of your experience. So I've been giving it a lot of thought in terms of how important and meaningful this is to people who are involved, but also just all of us could learn from this in many ways. Doesn't have to be an escape. It doesn't have to be a speed project, but in our daily runs, how often do we take our eyes off the sidewalk or take our eyes off the horizon to actually take in that moment?
Even just in life, right?
Yeah.
Even metaphorically, just in life.
Yeah.
I ran Comrades this year, which is an ultra in South Africa. I was there again, and I had friends running it. And I remember saying this to someone, I'm running 90K. There's a cutoff. If you don't do it in 12 hours, they cut off the finish line. You don't get a bagel. You don't get a banana. They just send you out the stadium like you weren't there.
I love how the bagel and the banana are the pieces that you bring up.
Yeah, it's just, you
don't. No bagel. A bagel and banana is very important to you.
You don't get anything. You don't get anything. But I thought to myself, because I'm running this and I'm out there for however long I'm out there, and when there's kids on the side of the road, I'm pulling over. Yeah. And if I've got extra candies or granolas, I'm giving it to them. And then over here, they're playing music and I'm dancing with them, and I'm still running. I still have to finish 90K and I have to finish it before the cutoff. But it dawned on me when I'm watching the sun come up and I'm like pausing a little bit or slowing right down so I can like savor it. Yeah. That if you finish comrades 3 hours before me and you miss those kids and you miss that sunrise and you miss the dancing and you miss the music and you miss all of those things, and you get there before me by 3 hours, I don't care what the clock says, you lost. You lost because you're in South Africa. And all these things around you are so much more important than this arbitrary number. I mean, unless you're winning, unless you're there to win, unless you're there. And this is the tricky thing with running in particular. The lines get blurred because we share the course with the elites. So we forget we're on the same results page as Kipchoge. So we somehow forget that we're running a different race because we're on the same course. We're stepping on the same cement. We're drinking from the same tables. You don't go to a basketball game. You don't get to go play on the court, tennis court. You don't get to go. But in running, we share the field. And so sometimes people get confused with regards to like, we're recreational runners. Pushing ourselves, yeah, for sure. But also like, the opportunity to run in different spaces through other cities and stuff also brings with it opportunities to see and experience so much more than the number that's locked into your watch.
I agree. This hits deeply because it's something I've wrestled with a lot since leaving the elite world. And actually, when I did my first and only ultra in 2023, a 50 mile in Bryce Canyon, there was multiple occasions like where I physically stopped and took 30 seconds because I wanted to be present. Yes, granted, when you're on trails, you have to somewhat be looking down because, yes, you can trip and fall off the side of the thing. But I wanted to make sure in these moments I stopped. And also for me, I was doing it with a friend who had passed on the day of his memorial. So it was meaningful in that way. But I wanted to physically stop, and I did, even though I knew in that moment that could mean I did win. I was in first place, but even though I knew that was risking that first place, even if that meant someone passed me, it was worth it for me. I was well aware because even being at the front, I knew if I just crossed the finish with having stared at the ground the whole time and not, touching nature as I went by it, slowing to take in nature, stopping to admire these scenic points, then, as you said, I had lost. So I think you're right in essence, but also I think even elites could. I think that gave me more energy and more life than it would have done had I had that 3 minutes back.
And that's the thing, right? It's just knowing the season you're in.
Yeah.
If you're there to win, you need to focus. And you can't stop and dance with the kids, and you can't give them. If you're there to win, you got a job to do, but you show up authentically for that season. And I think it's just really understanding that that the sport's more dynamic, it's more versatile, it's bigger, and there's so much more that you can experience through the sport. So it's like a buffet, right? Like you can just go to the shrimp every single time, but like there's other stuff there. And again, I don't want to take away from racing. I think racing's incredible. Pushing yourself, pushing your limits, the dedication, the determination, the consistency that comes from training is so important. And we carry those characteristics throughout our entire lives. So it's important, but it's not everything. and you can turn the dials depending on where you are, and you can decide.
Yeah.
Not every race has to be a PB. So
very true. Thank you for the reminder. Is there anything you would like to share with the community, based on what we've been talking about or otherwise, that you'd like to remind people as we wrap up here?
No, just I would say it's a marathon, not a sprint. Mm-hmm. Like, running can be such a beautiful reflection of the different phases of your life if you let it.
Yeah.
And so I've been lucky to be running for well over 20 years. And I'm so blessed when I look back at all these different phases of my running journey, because it really does reflect different parts of my life. And I am so happy about this phase right now. Yeah.
What is your name for this phase? Adventure?
Is my name?
No, what is this? The name of this phase? The name of
this phase. This would be the season of running through other people's experiences.
Okay.
Right. So if there's a physical season and a mental health season and an adventure season, this is kind of adventure mixed in with other people. Like I'm having I mean, again, maybe it's just because of my age now. I'm loving watching some of my younger friends navigate things and experience things. I love watching it and reliving it through other people's eyes.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing. Well, Q, I forever continue to learn from you, and I'm grateful for the lessons you've shared with us today, the introspection you've done, and I look forward to seeing you in a few days and again a week later. But thank you so much for joining me. This has been wonderful. I appreciate you.
I'm going to see you a lot over the next few weeks. Mm-hmm. Looking forward to it. Thank you.
Before we go any further, I just want to give a quick shout out to the Running for Real team. Without them, I would not be able to do barely anything compared to what I'm able to do today. They are behind the scenes. They are there for me. I am just so appreciative of them. To Jeremy Nessel, our podcast editor, audio consultant, and someone who's been with me since the start. To Sally Pontarelli, our content and operations manager, who is there day to day doing all the things to help me be successful. To Kelsey Wang, our head of design, and Louise Murphy, our associate designer. And finally, to Sandy Gutierrez, our photographer and content strategist. I am appreciative of all of you and wouldn't be able to do what I do without you. Oh, I really enjoyed that conversation. I love to learn from him, and I look forward to continuing to do so, as I encourage you to do the same. So go find him on social media. I will have links to his social media accounts so you can follow along with Escape to at runningforreal.com/episode 421. You can also find links to our partners for today, AG1, Tracksmith, and Precision. Thank you so much to those 3 for supporting me throughout my recovery journey. Again, that's at runningforreal.com/episode 421. You can get lots of discounts in there, so go check it out. Thank you so much for listening, my friends. I will see you next week.